So what is ego? So let's start by getting a basic understanding of what ego is. One definition is that it's a person's sense of their self-esteem or self-importance. And words that are associated with ego are words like self-esteem, self-importance, self-worth, self-respect, self-image, self-confidence, self-centered. Now, in psychoanalysis, ego is that part of the mind that mediates between the conscious and the unconscious and is responsible for reality testing and a sense of personal identity. And if we look at the structure of the ego, we find thoughts, knowledge, memories, attitudes, values, beliefs, decisions, talents, abilities, skills, and behaviours. And part of the problem, it's the verb to be, as in I am, you are. And so there's an identification process with the I, as in I am not good enough, or no one likes me, or I am better than you. But this I doesn't exist. It's just an illusion. Now, there's nothing wrong with ego. In fact, it's important to have a strong, healthy ego. But seriousness is the problem. And the solution is awareness and playfulness. So, how does the ego form? Now, I like Osho's description. He says that as a child, the infant is helpless. So every time it cries, there's always someone there to take care of it. So for the first few years of life, the infant child is the centre of attention. And as the infant's experiences and thoughts get laid down as memories, a sense of self arises at the centre of the mind. So the ego is like the centre of a massive library, but in fact, there is no one there. Now, some children grow up being the centre of attention. So you get the pretty girl, daddy's girl, and when she grows up to be a woman, she craves being the centre of attention. She's the woman who needs to be told 3 times a day that you love her. She needs the flowers every second day. She needs to be taken out to restaurants every weekend. If this doesn't happen, then she feels that a partner doesn't love her. She feels empty. Something's missing. So then you contrast this with the child who was not the centre of attention. So as a child, he was told, say, get out of sight, shut up. Children should be seen and not heard. As an adult, these people can find it quite challenging to form relationships. So somewhere between the extremes of giving a child too much attention and not enough attention, we find a balance. So we hear about big ego, the big egos. So you get the person with the big ego is up themselves, and that's an Australianism, being up yourself. It's always about them, and attention is more likely to be all on self or all on others. And they need to reassure themselves in some way that they're okay and that they're a worthwhile person. They need to prove to others that they're a worthwhile person, and they may do this by going to extremes to help others. They may have a need to be right at all costs, and when they get criticised, they will fight tooth and nail to prove that they're right. Or they may fall back onto a pious ego. So we get aggression or passive aggression. And the person with the big ego may blame others rather than take responsibility for self. So now we contrast the big ego with the strong ego. So the person with a strong ego feels good about themselves. They know they're not perfect, but they have no need to prove that they are. They welcome criticism and they just treat it as feedback because this is what helps them to grow. And the person with a strong ego will not only acknowledge their mistakes, but take responsibility for their mistakes. The person with a strong ego can have their attention on self or other. They know how to take care of self and know when to take care of others. They understand they've got a responsibility for themselves and at times a responsibility to others. So how do we spot the ego? Could be a title for a television show. You'll find there's a need to be right at all costs. Feelings of insecurity, jealousy, and embarrassment. The need to impress others and self-righteousness. Anger's often about ego. You offend me, you hurt me, you make me angry. This is just the ego whining, complaining that if only others would just act the right way, then I wouldn't have to get angry at you, rape you, or kill you. If only everyone would think like me, then we could have peace in the world. That one sound familiar? So, if only everyone would join my religion, then we'd have peace in the world. So what are some examples of ego? As I said before, a strong ego is not bad, You get the corporate executive, the politician, the activist who creates a program to help others or save the planet. Their behaviour might be ego-driven. It might not be. Everything that we do in one form or another is about ego. That's just the nature of the mind. But the ego is tricky. You can hear it in the language pattern. I am helping others, so I need your support, So we get the Pope, the priests, the saints, and the Mother Teresas. In fact, the pious ego of the saint is all about ego. Let's pick on a religion. Don't know why that came to mind, but anyway, here goes. So we hear people say things like, it's all about him, you're up yourself, So there seems to be a lot of judgment around ego as if it's bad to feel good about yourself. And the belief is that the rich man has a big ego and someone like Mother Teresa is egoless because she helps little children. Yet the pious ego is so slippery. And the way Osho tells the story, and by the way, Osho was a professor of philosophy at Jabalpur University in India. So Zen Master Osho, 1931, 1990, was an enlightened master who devoted his life to the raising of human consciousness. As I said, he was professor of philosophy at the University of Jabalpur, 1958, 1966, and he was an all India debating champion and gold medal winner. And he commented on nearly every philosopher, enlightened master, religious leader, and religious scripture known to mankind. But he's unique in that he speaks from the outside of the square of the politically correct establishment, and for that he got a lot of death threats. Anyway, if you have the courage to listen to his discourses, I guarantee they'll challenge your most cherished beliefs and your most fundamental assumptions about life. So I think it's best to avoid Osho altogether. Just forget him. And the way that Osho tells the story is that Mother Teresa, who was born in Macedonia, she went to India and she stole children off the street and she put them into orphanages using local resources. And then she converted them to Catholicism. And then when a Hindu couple would come to the orphanage to adopt an Indian child, they were told that they had to convert to Catholicism. And then she was against birth control and abortion. In a country like India, so overpopulated, people dying on the street, and she was just out there telling everybody, No birth control, no birth control. Anyway, so it seems like she was working for the Pope and that the children were just the means to spread Catholicism in India. So what can look like selflessness in the field of religion may just be the pious ego, standing on its head. If you're offended by this, then it's your ego that's offended. Hey, and by the way, did you know that scientists have discovered altruistic genes? That's right, we're all hardwired for altruism. And what they noted was that chimpanzees, they'll compete for status through public service. That is, if you do something to help others, then people will give you prestige and status. Isn't that interesting? And the more the behaviour appears to be unconditional, the more prestige people will give you. But the problem is that most of the time people will see the altruism rather than the motive behind the behaviour. And you find that religion is replete with examples of massive egos. Just think of the Indian gurus, New Age gurus, Christian evangelists, and many of these have got multi-million-dollar incomes. Some turn over billions of dollars annually. The list of these gurus is just too long to mention. Anyway, looking back on religion, we find that Buddha and Mahavira was the founder of the Jain religion, they both competed for the status of being the last Tirthankara. Can you believe that? There we have Buddha, Mahavira, and they're both out there claiming that they're the greatest. And Muhammad, he claimed that he was the last prophet and that his teaching was the only word of God. Even Jesus, God bless him, said some really stupid things like, I'm the only begotten Son of God. Hey, isn't this ego? And the night before the crucifixion, after dinner, Jesus is pacing around. He couldn't sleep because he knew that the next day he was to be arrested. So why didn't he just leave town and escape to another country? Because his ego kept him there. And it's not like the Romans didn't give him a chance to leave. They even left it till late Friday afternoon to nail him to the cross, knowing full well he'd be taken down at dusk, to give him the greatest chance of recovery. But Jesus just had to hang around, and then the reality eventually hit him. Ouch! This hurts. And he says, God, why hast thou forsaken me? And this is just ego. This is all about Jesus. But he was doing it to save the sins of everyone in the world, both past, future, and present. This is a big ego. So is ego good or bad? Maybe it's just about functionality. And the easiest way to identify ego is by looking for embarrassment. So one afternoon, I was on the beachfront in Burleigh Waters, and there was a pretty teenager. She's about 18 years old. She's dressed in all the latest and cutest fashion. She's skating along on her rollerblades, looking very pretty. And then she hits a bunya nut. Now, everyone knows that you've got to watch out for the dreaded bunya nut. So she hits this bunya nut, and she falls arse over tit and lands flat on the concrete. Me being the compassionate person I am, I just sit there and watch, And you could just see the pain on her face. It wasn't the pain from landing on the concrete, but it was the pain of a hurt ego. It's like, why me? Why should this happen to me? I'm pretty. Pretty girls who are, skating to impress the boys don't fall off and feel pain. And then there was another occasion. So I was out for my morning walk, and a teenage boy, he skates past on his skateboard. And as skateboarders do, his intention was out in the street, looking all around him, looking really casual, acting really cool. And then he pulls out his mobile phone, starts texting. The next thing he falls off, and he lands hard on the bitumen. It was like, ouch, And I was about 20, 40 feet away, and he knew that I saw it, And he got back up on the skateboard and started skating. But you could see the pain in his face, and it was a pain of his ego. Like, why me? I'm cool. I can multitask. I can use my phone while I skate. I earn the road, but this hurts. And yet, on another occasion in Frio, I saw an 18-year-old guy fall off his skateboard. He landed flat on his back on the bitumen. It was like, ooh, And he laughed. He just lay there and he just cracked up laughing. There was none of this, poor me shit. He skated. He understood the risk. He experienced pain. But he had a strong ego. So he was able to laugh. And it was an amazing experience to witness. And then there was a time I used to go skydiving. And this guy landed hard right in front of me, only about 100 feet away. And he came in real fast with the wind behind him. And as he landed, he somersaulted 2 or 3 times, head over heels, really fast. And then he just lay there. And I went over, I sat next to him, and he sat up with his arms around his knees like this, and he just sat there, And God, it must have hurt so much. But there was none of this ego shit, none of this poor me or why me. He just experienced the pain. I tell you, it was a pretty amazing experience. So I hope you understand by now that ego's not all bad. It's very important for you to have a strong ego, to have ego strength, so you can stand up for yourself, to state your case, and be open to the opinions of others, But the problem arises when the ego's weak, and then you have to use other tactics like to bolster yourself, which means that the decisions you make may not be the best ones, So we need our politicians to have good ego strength. We can't have a political and religious leaders feeling offended or embarrassment. It could lead to war. And I know that it's important for you to have leaders who you can trust. So this is what I want you to do. Get yourself a fart machine. That's right, a fart machine. Next time you go to a convention, a political rally, a religious meeting, any kind of event, the more serious, the better, all right? Set up a fart machine under the table at the front, under the chairs, right? Under the cushions. And at the appropriate time, you use the remote to make a fart. And just watch what people do. Those who've got ego strength, they'll either laugh or just ignore it. But those who have weak ego strength, they're going to look embarrassed. And they'll look accusingly at others and say things like, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. And if no one backs them up, they'll probably get angry because their denial is used to protect the ego. So embarrassment and ego are both signs of a weak ego. So let this be the criteria for determining whether you're leaders, whether they be political leaders or religious leaders, that they have what it takes to be a real leader. That when someone farts, they either laugh or they ignore it. That when someone does something offensive, they don't get angry and call for war, but instead they look for the humour in the situation. You see, seriousness is the problem, and awareness and playfulness is the solution.